Hi everyone, it's Barry Mountain. Thank you very much, all of those that got back to me from the first web cast or podcast that we released. It was a bit of an ad hoc thing, but it was getting the general information out. We're going to try all different types of things, and some of those will be live streaming. But I'll go on to that further later. Now, I got asked two questions mainly. Perhaps I didn't go into depth enough on the original podcast. So we'll start with question one, which was basically the Aurora camera. Now, some of you have picked this up and said, well, the Aurora camera doesn't give a correct image. It is just a computer enhanced image derived from facial markings and some biorhythmic information from a electronic pad. You are quite correct in this. We experimented with several cameras trying to find a method to actually capture the human aurora. We found that it was extremely difficult and they were inefficient. In truth, none of them actually showed the human aurora, just a heat signature of the person, which was changed and manipulated by a computer to give a, I won't say false representation, but perhaps an incorrect representation of an energy field. So what we did was we had to go back to the drawing board, and a kind of eureka moment came to me when I got a electronic tag on some shopping, and as I went out through the barriers, it set the alarm off. I'm sure this has happened to many people. Now, they send out a little RF signal. It triggers the electronic gizmo that's actually on the packaging. It sends a tiny little radio message and the alarm goes off. So we thought, well, okay, let's take that one step further and reverse it. So what we did was we took a form of Tesla coil and we reversed it, two very large ones, and we placed them either side in two stands of an individual, and then we put two copper plates onto the ground, which were also connected to a low voltage machine and oscilloscope, which we could adjust frequencies. We then connected the coils back to some processing equipment, and by increasing the RF current into the human being, we were just able to get a luminous depiction of a human's energy aurora. Now, this is about, I think, as close as anyone's got, because to be truthful, there's £1 million out there and we'd love to get that, but we were, although we could get a representation of the aurora, we could not replicate an identical pattern from each individual that we tested. It was rather bizarre. We just couldn't repeat the experiment over and over again to get confirmed results, which then we could submit and say, well, this is the actual aurora, blah blah blah. Although we have got an indication of the energy field surrounding a human, we have actually increased and changed the way we are electrifying the human person, or what we actually did was we decided to charge the room with a kind of plasma discharge. Now, this worked immensely well because the human body was susceptible to the electrostatic interaction between the plasma charge and its own magnetic field, and this gave us a better understanding of the human aurora. That we then used in the processing equipment false colours. These are the ones that supposedly mediums or people that supposedly that can physically see an aurora with their human eyes. I doubt this, because the spectrums that we were analysing were way above any frequency that any human can see, but I won't say they can't. But at any rate, we used this equipment, and we actually managed to see more than one aurora. Although not clear at this stage, we're still experimenting with the equipment. It's devilishly expensive, and we hope in about 18 months to have a genuine camera that can actually see an aurora, but at this particular moment it is too clumsy, it's very bulky and very difficult to transport. But we do have the ability to see, once we charge the atmosphere with a form of plasma energy, the interaction of the human being's magnetic electromagnetic energy in that plasma field, and the two Tesla coils pick up the transmissions, and we are then able to process them, and we can see a human being after we've processed the data and their magnetic field. That's about as basic as I can get on it. It took us 18 months to actually produce this piece of equipment, and believe you me, it's far more sensitive than any camera. We literally had to get rid of unbelievable amounts of interference. We had radar sweeps from military, civilian, airports, and so on and so forth. Then we had television programs, then we had, oh crikey, microwave frequencies. If someone was using just a cooking microwave, there was a leakage there which actually caused us anomalies in our frequencies. So you cannot believe how sensitive you have to make the equipment before you can actually analyze a human energy field. But we have actually proved that humans interact with each other with their own energy, and that one exists. The full spectrum colors are quite bizarre, because they don't actually look like a human being. It's you have the shape. It looks like Mr. Blobby, basically. The energy is centered in various areas and actually moves. But yes, that's about as far as we've progressed. When I was talking about the teenagers in my other podcast, these were two volunteers that we stuck in a room, and we physically could actually see the interaction of their electromagnetic energy between the two of them. It was unexpected, and it was very, very interesting. We tried this with two older people, two middle-aged people, and two sort of 20-somethings. And we found that the most powerful electromagnetic energy, which obviously young people and the human being is at its height between the ages of 16 and sort of 20. And obviously she was reaching across to see if he was a good mate, he was reaching across to see if she was a good mate, as the normal natural processes of evolution go. So, at any rate, they were very fascinating experiments, and we got a lot of data from it. But I digress. So, to sum up, yes, we've built a very cumbersome, very large and expensive Aurora camera. It's not portable. It is susceptible to any form of frequency interference, even lighting can cause problems with it. That gives you just some idea of the type of equipment we had to build, create, and literally tune to be able to physically just get a very basic picture. But at any rate, we've achieved it, but we can't, as I say, replicate the same thing all the time. So alas, we can't submit our data just yet for that £1 million. But we're working on it. Now, to question 2 about our energy and the way it transfers from one universe to another. Difficult subject, this. A lot of you didn't understand that that our energy is constantly moving, constantly evolving, and when we die, it must go somewhere. Now, in my last podcast, I indicated that it must, or there is the possibility, a very high possibility, that it transfers across to another universe, because CERN has now pretty much confirmed that we live in a multi-universe and not a single universe. So this being said, it means that if you look at us and as a human, and you regress a human, you find that a lot of us, well, many of us actually, have had multiple lives, can speak multiple languages from all different times of time periods, and we have done and even changed sex. So it figures that something's going on here, which, you know, the reincarnation theory possibly is true because of this. Now, a lot of people would say, bunkum, it's just a legacy. Well, you tell me how that legacy got there. Remember, you're the sum of your experiences. So if you can't speak Japanese, then the sum of your experience in your energy is you do not have that legacy to pass on. So there is no good thinking that that's going to happen. But obviously, if you can speak Japanese whilst under hypnosis, it means that somewhere in your past you have learnt to speak Japanese in one of your past lives. And that's all we can actually say. There is no proof. It's very difficult to question people in their past lives as to what they do, what they didn't do, because it's quite difficult to hold a human in that time period, because obviously Mother Nature wants you to be in this time period. So we tend to find that ask a few questions and the subject comes back either to a different time period or comes completely out of hypnosis into present time. But what we found is there is, I don't think we've ever come across one person that we can't regress. So this being said, it means that something's happening, the universe is experimenting with us. We are pure energy, as I've said. The body is just a husk that holds the energy, and it is there to sustain it, for us to evolve, to achieve other things and to move forward. That is the human experience, to explore, to find out, to move on and to evolve. That is who we are. There's not one of us that doesn't look up to the stars and wonder what's out there. It's just in our genetics. So if we have this legacy, this memory, and we are pure energy, which we know we are, when we pass on, this energy has to go somewhere. Now, energy is, if any of you know and have done basic science or physics, you will know from those courses that energy can only change. It can't go, it can't be lost, it can't dissipate, at least in our known theories to date. So here we have energy. What's it going to do? It dissipates from the body. You have been learning, evolving all your life. You have take all that knowledge. Remember, knowledge also can't be lost. So that knowledge has gone with you. Now your soul or your essence, your energy, is going to leave your body, because this body has basically done its job, carried you for so long, and now it's time for you to move on, become more enlightened, and then move on to the next adventure, for want of a better word. So there you are. You're going to take who you are with you to the next level. You are an individual. You are and you are going to take the sum of your experiences and those of your ancestors with you. Now you could, and the way the theory works here is that all the universes are running in the same time. So in other words, you're not going to be a megalomaniac, a rock star, a porn queen, or whatever you want to be in all the multi-universes at any one time. Mathematics just doesn't allow that, so it's fairly evident that it won't occur. But what you can do is that, it appears at least, all the universes are running in the same linear time that we are. So once you transfer from this one to the next one, that is when perhaps you could be a porn star, a rock star, or a model, or whatever you want to be. But then you would only be enhancing the next being. That being will be born into that universe. They will have their own energy, and you will enhance. You will be part of that energy. And it is you that will be able to help and enlighten that being, and try to guide that being away from certain things. It might be that you want to be a millionaire in this universe and never achieved it. In the next universe, you could be a millionaire, and you could have the euphoric sense of having all this money and being able to go out and shop and go out and choose a different car or whatever you want to do, and you can experience that. But then when you move on from that place to the next level, you might find you're a pauper in a back street somewhere. But at least you could say that you've had what you wanted to be. Now, we all wish for many things, but this is the only way that you can, I believe, experience pretty much everything. And I think it's a sense of becoming more enlightened. I can't tell you what the universe has in store for us, but all I can seem to understand through mathematics and physics is that energy can change, it can transform, but it can never be lost. Knowledge is pretty much the same. So if we live in a multi-universe, it seems only logical that we transfer from one to the other, and we take the essence of our learning and all the horrors and everything, and we then take them with us. Now, as I mentioned about the Aurora camera and the energy levels with certain people, I do have a thought on this, and this is just a blind thought of mine. It seems that possibly nature has a way of balancing things. If you're going to be a megalomaniac and you're killing thousands of people here, as I said before, you've got to take that with you when you pass. That information is going to be there. You're going to have to live with that horror. And I don't care how round the twist you are in this universe, you are going to take that with you, and you're going to have to live with that until you can come to terms with it. But I believe the universe has a way of cancelling out. I can't be sure, But because of the lower energy rates on the most violent members in society, the ones that have done the most cruelty and killing, there is a possibility, and this is only a supposition, that you will not be allowed to transfer across. I think the universe has a way of cancelling you out. As I've said, you're the sum of your experiences. We found that the most enlightened people and the ones with the most energy are those that are well read, and when I say well read, I mean that are pushing themselves forward, trying to do more, trying to experience life, helping others, and living wholly, not just for themselves. We also found people that are very selfish, also have a lower energy rate. Religion is not as bright as those that are well-rounded, fairly content with themselves, and are I would call enlightened, a little more enlightened. The brightest of all was a Buddhist monk that volunteered. The energy levels that came off this gentleman, actually, we didn't actually have an ability to read them. It was so colossal. But he was at peace with himself, had been helping people all his life. He'd been trying to evolve himself in his own way, in his own abilities, and he literally seemed very at peace with himself. And it was quite wonderful. I think what he said to me is that all the religions must come together. They don't come together and form one religion. They just come together and be a religion for all the religions. And they worship together, but the most important thing they must have is compassion. Compassion is something that the earth has lost. Humans have lost compassion, and it's self-evident if you look at our daily lives, the way we behave. This was what he came and said to me, that if we could bring all the major religions together and have no squabbling, because truthfully there is nothing different between any one, and then have more compassion, he believes that the human race would evolve and move forward a lot faster. And I kind of agree with him. I really do. It was a very enlightened discussion we had with him. And he seemed quite wholly content that eventually it will occur. In the not too distant future, he seems to think, within 20 years. Which I thought was quite ambitious, but he seemed quite content with that figure. Now, he was quite intrigued with my philosophy on our energy and reincarnation, and how it possibly could relate to other universes. And he sat down and listened to my discussion, and he was quite astounded. And he just looked and he said, well, that makes perfect sense in my religion. It's always been a nagging thought to me about reincarnation on various levels, on how we transfer our energy and enlightenment. And he said, what you've discussed with me here makes perfect sense. We evolve, we become more enlightened, we move on. And then we evolve again, we become more enlightened, and we move on. As he said, we're the sum of our experiences. As the sum of our experiences expands and moves on, so we gain greater enlightenment until we become one with the great Creator. Okay, I'm not going to take his beliefs away, but I believe there is a final step here, and I'm not sure what it will be. It might be that we are evolving into another being, and it takes this huge length of time for us to grow up and to become enlightened until we are that being? We don't know. It's a process of learning. So what I've said and how I've tried to describe what I believe happens, because it seems to be the most logical assumption. There are no, in my book, religious cogitations here. It is just a pure mathematical one. As I've said, scientists look at death and find it a mystery. Not the fact that we die, but where does the energy and the knowledge go? It can't be quantified. It's just, there has to be something on the equal sign. If you've got a plus sign, you've got to have something else somewhere else. It just, for this one particular point, we have nothing. So it is quite a bizarre situation. So we have to kind of figure what is on the equal sign. And there are lots of speculations, and for the past 2 millennia, thereabouts, we've been using religion to try and explain who we are and where we are in the universe. Nothing wrong with that. Religion is fantastic. But I don't think in the modern day, in the modern age, where we have now got very high math, that this fulfills the needs of the beings that exist today. As much as God can fulfill many niches, it can't fill many of them. And what's happening with religions all around the world is they're gradually dying out because people are losing faith in them. One, if there's such a powerful, omnipotent being, why in God's name does he allow so much horror to take place? Now, you get the answer, then it's not his place to interfere with human creation. Well, I take issue with that, because if he's actually, or she has put man on the earth, we are in God's image, and he's watching us brutalize each other in the most horrific manners, you would think that he would step in, or she would step in and say, hang on guys, enough's enough. You've been slaughtering each other now for millennia, and now it's time to get your act together and move on. But this is, I don't believe, going to happen. I can't say it won't, but I don't believe it will happen. And so what we found is in England, which used to be quite a devout country, in the last 20 or 30 years, religion, it's dying faster than you can possibly imagine. I mean, they're selling churches off quicker than you can. Well, I mean, we have pizza houses now in churches. And the same is happening in many other countries. Even the Muslims, their religion, it's still firmly grasped by many, and it is enforced ruthlessly. But to be truthful with you, people are getting so sick of the horror and the constant wars that are associated with this religion that they're starting to drift off. Not just in their ones or twos, in their thousands. And they're starting to take up other small religions and other things. Some are completely, they don't have a religion. And it's the same right across the world. In many places, in many different religions, people, although they believe in one way, it is being left behind. We're not so reliant on religion. Which is, you could say, the human spirit is growing up. We're moving away from the dogma. We're gradually moving. We can take religion with us, but we just take the good parts. We don't need the bad. We don't need the horrors. And that's what we're doing. we're starting to move forward. For the very first time, we're actually moving forward. And it's quite wonderful to see. Yes, we still have a lot of dogma out there. We still have a lot of dogma out there. And there's a lot of people that are prepared to do the most horrific things to get their point of view across. But what can you say? Christians have slaughtered millions in the past. Muslims are in a desperate struggle, I don't know quite what, for their countries, for their religion, whatever it is. It just seems, it smacks of total desperation. And it is very sad, because the Quran is a beautiful religion if you look at it in its total. And the last thing it wants is war. In actual fact, it preaches tolerance with other religions and to pray with them. So I find it quite incredible that we've got this disparity in today's world, where it seems that a few individuals preach jihad, when if you look at the Quran and you read, it is only under exceptional circumstances that a holy jihad can be actually ordered. And I don't think any of the wars we've had fulfill that niche. As brutal and horrible as they are, they don't or are not part of the Quran. And I'm afraid it is very sad that people are twisting it for political and for military use. And well, that's as much as I want to say on it, because it's a beautiful religion and it shouldn't be used the way it's been used. Although the Christians, I can't say, they're just as bad. They wave the Bible. This is the word of God. No, it's not. It's the word of man transcribed down where people think it's the word of God. Oh, blasphemy, there you are. I'm going to be staked out in the sand. But it is the truth. We must leave this dogma behind and take our religions forward. It would be wonderful to be able to take them into the universe. And it needs to be done, but it doesn't need to be done in the method that we're doing. Truthfully, we should be working together to go to the stars as fast as possible, to spread the word of our knowledge and who we are and our philosophies, because in truth they're quite wonderful. But alas, we have dogma. I digress from what I was talking about on death. I think I will leave it here and allow you to sort of make up your own minds. And I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of flack, as per normal. And yeah, take care of yourselves, be kind, and goodbye for now.